welcome back to our final character analysis from the Marvel Knights DLC. We've gone over every other character in the game up until this point, and this is the last one until the coming DLC this next Monday. And that is going to be none other than Morbius the Living Vampire. Now, a little bit of some background on Morbius and where he comes from. Morbius has been around in comics for a fair amount of time. He first debuted in the Amazing Spider-Man issue 101 in October of 1971. So this character is coming up on just over 50 years old at this point in time, or just about 50 years old in terms of when he was introduced. Now, Morbius, or as his alter ego is, Dr. Michael Morbius, PhD and MD, is quite the formidable opponent. And as you can see, he's got quite the ferocious demeanor here. A couple of things that are really important to note as they do play into his character abilities and just the way that he's put together is he has a genius level intellect, so he is quite a smart individual. He is also a trained biologist and biochemist, possesses superhuman strength, speed, and durability, has the power of flight, hypnotism, and also relies on consuming human blood, so as a vampire would. So he's quite the interesting character to have about, and his moveset certainly is one of that ferocious nature as well. In terms of the attacks that he has access to in this game, a lot of them have to do with melee-style attacking, as he doesn't really have any ranged capabilities in terms of damage output. His first attack, Claws and Fangs, Morbius will jump forward onto his foes and drain their health, temporarily boosting the damage the character inflicts, and you can hold this button to charge it up. The second attack, the Vicious Vamp, also involves the claws on both hands, where he slashes in the direction that the character is facing. This is one of those flurry type attacks that you can continue to use as you repeatedly press the button. His third ability doesn't have a damage aspect of sorts, but it does have some very interesting use. It's the Hypnotic Gaze, which we mentioned from one of his character abilities, where he will stare at foes that are in front of him and paralyze them for a time, also increasing the amount of damage that they take. This doesn't work as well against characters who have stagger bars, or especially big bosses, but it's certainly useful for a lot of the grunts that you would need to face or expect in any fight that you will come across. And his fourth and final ability, which he has, is the Slashing Strike, where he closes the distance to foes at a high speed and cuts into them. This is one that you can continue to use as you repeatedly press the button. Now, the synergies that we have for this team do maximize Morbius's individual synergies. This can be accomplished by adding Thanos, Punisher, and Doctor Strange to his team, the synergies you see over on the right-hand side. Let's jump over into the DLC menu, go over what quests you need to go through in order to unlock this character, and then showcase what he can do in a Style 200 Rift. Alright, so once you're into the Gauntlet menu from the expansion DLC menu, you will need to come down or unlock up to this final rank in Phase 1 Curse Unleashed, which is the level 30 Living Vampire Gauntlet. Once you're into this gauntlet, there will be 5 different quests that you will need to clear out. Upon finishing the first one at any difficulty with any level of clearance, you can gain access to Morbius and start using him on your team. The first wave is a standard 200 style enemy wave that you need to defeat, where certain enemies emerging from portals will spawn explosives that you can use to clear the area. There is a 7-minute timer. The second quest that you need to finish out is defeating Elektra. This has damage that increases over time, both the damage you deal and the damage you take. It's the same fight you're familiar with from the regular story quest, so nothing too important other than that little tweak. At the end of this quest, which is on a 6-minute timer, you will regain a certain amount of your health back for each of the characters in your party. The third fight, which you'll need to clear out, is defeating Ultron, where extreme attacks will deal more damage, but everything else is less effective, and your extreme gauge charges faster than normal. It's on a 5-minute timer. Honestly, you can be cycling your extreme attacks about once every 20 to 30 seconds, so that makes things pretty simple in terms of clearing it out, as long as you time things out. And again, it's the Ultron fight that you're familiar with from other Infinity Rifts and the main story quest. The fourth fight that you will have to go through is defeating prisoners, which is basically what you do right off the top of the game, where you fight different prisoners from off of the raft. However, some of them are infected, which is a quirk that is in the Marvel Knights DLC expansion specifically. And those infected will always be revived as reborn. And the reborn characters have some additional quirks that you have to keep your eye out for. This is a 4-minute and 20-second timer that you have to clear it out, and you will regain a certain percentage of your health back for each of your characters in your party after clearing it out. The fifth and final fight that you will need to clear out for this is defeating Morbius himself. Certain powerful infected characters are always revived as reborn in this. You will need to defeat the cursed opponents in order to make Morbius appear. It's on a 10-minute timer, so you got plenty of time to clear things out. You don't need to get all of the stars as listed here in order to unlock the character. You just need to clear out the quest, and that will give you access to Morbius for your use and rank up. So let's go ahead and jump into a Infinity Rift and defeat a Style 200 wave to showcase specifically how Morbius controls. So the first thing that we will note is, yes, Morbius does have the power of flight, so executing a double jump will allow him to start flying, and his aerial attack, he will slam directly down onto the ground in front of him, knocking down any small grunt-type characters that are caught in his path. His standard attacks, he has a 4-hit melee slash, the last of which does have an element of knockdown to it. And his heavy attack, he will zoom up, knock characters that he connects with up into the air, and then slam back down onto the ground. And that's all that you need to be aware of in terms of his basic kit. In terms of his other attacks, we have the Claws and Fangs, where he will zoom in front of him to clash into characters in the immediate vicinity, which he will then use to power up his own attacks, as you can see kind of by the particle effects that are surrounding him. And that is quite nice for slashing through characters that have this stagger bar. The second attack, the Vicious Vamp, he just slashes out in front of him. This does not amp up his attacks like the other one is, but if you start his attacks with Claws and Fangs to get that attack bonus, this is quite a nice damage dealing move. His third attack, the Hypnotic Gaze, is one that's a bit different, where you'll see the affected characters with that pink mist about them. And it does not work on characters that have any sort of stagger bar to them, but it will increase the damage that can be applied to those characters. So if you start with the Claws and Fangs, rip over into the Vicious Vamp, if you start with the Claws and Fangs, then hit the Hypnotic Gaze, and then it's finish with a series of melee attacks, or even the Vicious Vamp, then you should be in for a pretty good time. The final attack that he has access to is this Slashing Strike, where he will zip around, kind of teleporting very quickly. You can mash the button over and over again to use that, and he will zip around slashing at any enemies he comes in contact with. So a nice attack for intangibility and keeping yourself decently free from harm. His extreme attack, he will run around in this cyclone, slash back down, and then suck some of the life force out of the opponents in the nearby area, which amps up his attacks for a short period, similar to the benefit he gets from Claws and Fangs. So Morbius is very much a tank buster style character with his ability to increase damage that he deals, increase the damage that is being dealt to opponents by lowering their defense, and crippling large groups of enemies. So he's very, very powerful and quite a fun addition to the game. So make sure that if you haven't purchased the DLC and you have any interest, this is a character that would be quite helpful for any characters that you would come in contact with. Now, the the next 4 DLC characters have been revealed. They are the X-Men DLC pack, and we will be receiving that DLC this coming Monday. So as soon as that DLC drops, I will be acquiring the different characters. I will then do a character analysis of the first character that you gain access to and give you a breakdown that same day. You can expect the other 4 characters to have similar character breakdowns and analysis in a similar fashion on Friday, and then the following Monday and Friday of that next week. So be sure to subscribe to stay in tune for all of those character analyses. Until then, thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have yourself a fantastic day.